So now let's create the event for start button that starts the timer. But before we do that, I noticed that I made a little mistake here. I named the button for the clear. If I click on it, you can see in the name that it's TXT clear. Of course, it's a button, so it's supposed to be BTN clear. So I'll rename it here, and that should fix it. However, if you go to the events for the button, it still says TXT clear.click. So I'm gonna rename that to BTN clear and click OK. So now the event was created, and all I have to do is copy this code from the TXT clear click. I'll just copy it and paste it into the BTN clear click. And now I can delete this TXT clear underscore click event because we don't have it anymore. So that will take care of that. So now let's go back to our timer. So the first thing we need to do is to set enabled properties for the start and pause button. When we press start button, we want that button disabled. We don't want to let the user press it again when the timer is already running. And we want the user to be able to pause the timer, so we want that button enabled. So we want the pause button enabled and start button disabled when we actually click the start button. So I'll double click the start button, go to the event for the BTN start underscore click, and here I will do the BTN start dot enabled. I'll set it to false, and I'll set the BTN pause enabled to true. So now our timer is running, so start button is disabled and pause button is enabled. Of course, we also want to enable the timer because when we press the start button, we also want to start the timer. Remember, the timer is not enabled when the form loads. We only want it to be enabled when the start button is pressed. So I will do tim timer enabled equals true, and this will start the timer. And we also want to enable all text boxes. Now, we do have them enabled when the form loads, but we will be disabling them when the timer is paused. So when the timer is restarted, we need to enable them. We could of course go and enable them one by one, but we don't have to. We have all the data entry objects, which is the text boxes and the two buttons for accept and clear. We have all of these in a group. So rather than enabling each object separately, we can simply enable the group, which in turn enables every element in that group. So the group is named GRB data entry, and we will enable it. So enabled equals true. And once the data entry is enabled, we can set the focus to the first text box, which is the TXT name text box. One more thing we need to do here, and it is actually the most important thing, is to set our last elapsed variable. And we need to set it to the current time using the now property of the data time structure. So when the start button is clicked, the last elapsed variable holds the time when the timer started. So our last elapsed will equal the datetime dot now. Alright, so that's all for the start button. Next, we will code the pause button.